3 things I listened to today. 1, 3 remarkable young women sat in front of us. 3 remarkable young women who have found their voice to speak with clarity, confidence, compassion, and courage. Courage, as Hemingway described it, is grace under pressure. To be a servant leader today, I think, is to be a person of courage, to find your voice, to speak up, speak the truth with love. The 3 of you did that, and you did that so eloquently. Thank you so very much. Second, foundation of servant leadership, of all leadership, is self-awareness. What percentage of the American population is self-aware? 10%. The greatest temptation that all of us face right now, and many of you have faced it all throughout this morning, is distraction, being pulled apart, not being fully present. And it's very easy right now to be distracted by the loudest voices. So what happens is that whatever a leader pays attention to, that's what everyone else in the organization pays attention to. Look for the good stuff. How important it is, that level in terms of self-awareness. Third, a word that came up that's very, very important is discern. It comes from 2 Latin words, discern away, which means to cut away. What does that seem? To be pruned. Who likes to be pruned? Who likes to have some of that kind of stuff cut away? It's painful to be a good leader. It demands sacrifice, if you will. You have to have the willingness to stand in the pain of other people. So when I ask people, do you want to be a servant leader? Do you have the greed for excessive pain? Well, what is empathy? To empathize in terms of all the things that Dick just talked about, the people that are suffering. To be aware. Now, here it is in terms of the neuroscience. There's a difference between empathy and compassion. Empathy is the early alert system to pain that's going on. Compassion is our ability to respond. And what happens in terms of the neuroscience, different parts of our brain light up when we are empathetic or when we are compassionate. And that's very, very important. And we need to keep both alive. And finally, it's about mindset, what we pay attention to. So you would be disappointed if I didn't end with a story. Equation. E plus R equals O. Class, E plus R equals O. Everybody in the class. E plus R equals O. What does it mean? The events in our life. We have little or no control over the events of our life. You have no control over what goes on in Washington, D.C. today. You have no control over the markets. You have no control over the crazy traffic here in Milwaukee. I want to just tell you that. No control. I mean, think, even in terms of our own health, we all know how fragile we are. The events in our life, the things that take place, we always have control over the R. What is our response to the event or our interpretation of the event? How am I going to respond in that moment? And so it becomes a habit. Do I respond with compassion, empathy? Is my first choice to listen, to understand, to be fully present? And then it equals O, and we never will know what the outcomes are going to be. If we knew what the outcomes were going to be from today, it'd be manipulation. Everybody walks away today with what you need. Now, I try to practice that. And ask a group of this. Write it down. Talk about an event in your life, response, and obstacle. So I'm working with a construction group, and I say, okay, nominate somebody at your table. Who has a good story? They all point to Jake. Jake said, well, 12 years ago, he said I was set up with a blind date. It was the same day I was getting a new smartphone. It took 2 extra hours. I showed up for a blind date 2 hours late. The woman had waited for me. I said, do you want to go out? She said, sure. She said, that was 12 years ago. We've been married for 11 years and have 3 kids. Her response changed his life. That's how our lives are changed, is by those responses in the moment. So Jake's walking out, and I said, Jake, where do you live? He said, Blair, Wisconsin. I said, do you like living in Blair? Oh, he said, nice place between Eau Claire and La Crosse. But actually, I'm from Peshtigo. I said, Peshtigo? My dad grew up on a farm 20 miles from Peshtigo in Coleman, Wisconsin. And my aunt saved her life by jumping into the Peshtigo River during the Great Peshtigo Fire. And I said, my cousin was a middle school teacher in Peshtigo. In fact, he came to graduate school at Viterbo in 1990, and when he came, he brought down his fishing boat. He's from northern Wisconsin. He wasn't going to miss a summer of fishing just to go to school. He walked into class and said, hi, cuz. He's my mom's second cousin, my mom's first cousin, my second cousin. We became good friends. I go up to stay in Peshtigo and I go and teach up there. On our first night after class, he stops at a Quick Trip, goes and gets 10 pounds of ice. I said, "Cuz, 10 pounds of ice? Cuz, old fashions." I said, we have John Brozick. And Jake looked at me and he said, "Mr. Brozick was my teacher." He said, "I'm sorry to tell you this." He said, he pulls out his phone, and on his phone is a picture of my cousin. He said, "My mom sent this, your cousin, I'm sorry to tell you, your cousin died 2 days after Christmas of pancreatic cancer." I learned about my cousin's death from a stranger who I just asked, "Where are you from?" Doesn't end there. 2 weeks ago, Jake sends me an email. "Tom, I bet you didn't see this." I open it up, it's a link. Do you know that the Green Bay Packers are the only team in the NFL that has a fan hall of fame? Every year, people recommend people to be a fan, and they only have 17. This year, they chose my cousin John posthumously. And the video is of Mark Murphy, the president of the Packers, giving the plaque to my third cousin, who runs out in the field, and there's the whole family waiting to celebrate because my cousin John used every Packer Sunday as an opportunity to gather the family. See, what's really extraordinary in this, everybody wants to be seen and everybody wants to be heard, but they can't if we are distracted. They can't if we are not willing to be silent, to be present. Whole persons, meaning whole persons, change the world.